live.
Hello and welcome to another live demonstration. Today is the 1st of December, so I'm going to draw a bauble. I was going to do it on the velour paper, that really lovely soft velvety feeling paper, but I actually decided to do it on pastel mat because I don't think I've shown you pastel mat before. So pastel mat, it is really wonderful paper. As I was using it, when I use things again, after not using them for a while, it reminds me how wonderful some materials are and that I've forgotten. So pastel mat, it actually feels quite smooth, but it has a super grippy surface. I was doing swatches to decide what colours I need for this project. And you can see here how it just grips the pastel straight away. A lot of pastel artists will work upright because it allows dust to drop down. It does create a little bit of dust, but not a huge amount. Blending, it will blend, but what you'll see is it won't blend over the pastel area. So this is the area I've got. You can push it into the paper and soften it off. It will blend if you then add layers. So then the pastel layers are blending. It's such a grippy surface, it allows it to grip initially, then the more layers you put on, then you get much softer blends. So just something to bear in mind. But what I love is the intensity of colour you get straight away because it just takes the pastel and holds it. You don't need to fix it. It will take watercolour. So you can put a watercolour ground on it, put a wash on it, and then be able to work in mixed media and use pastel on, with watercolour. It also is suitable for something like a pastel liquefier where you wet the pastel and move the pigment that way. Suitable for water, so it's a really versatile paper, and like I say, it's perfect for taking down your colour. So first thing I did was, with pastels you have so many different colours. It's not, I normally like to keep it simple, 3 colours, 1 brush. With pastels, as much as I tried to keep it simple, I found I was adding more colours to the what I was going to do. Because as much as you can blend pastels, you can't create a new colour very easily. So you really need the colour you're looking for in the pastel. So you will often find yourself adding to a pastel range and you'll have huge boxes of pastels. So I was doing swatches, just working out what colours I'll need. And this is always useful. So do it on the same colour paper you're going to be working on, the same type of paper. It just gives you a good idea of what colours you need. You can reject the others, put them to one side so you don't have them and get yourself confused. And it's much easier to start from here. I will also be using pastel pencils because I find that I want to add a little bit more detail, and you can see how much more controllable a pastel pencil is to the thicker end of a soft pastel. So soft pastels for the initial base layer, and then just for a little bit of detail using the pastel pencils. 2 colours I will be using are the SAA silver and the SAA gold. That's not gold. I should know it because it's shiny.
Have you lost it?
I've lost it. It'll turn up. Sienna, orange. I would be showing you the gold, but I can't find it. But there is a silver, there's a gold, and there's a copper in this range. A copper's not in there either. But what they are they're soft pastels, and they work just like a soft pastels, but they have little mica particles in it, so they're shiny. They add that extra shimmer. Not sure you can see it under these lights, but I know definitely if you go into daylight, you just get that extra little surprise bit of sparkle. So they're fantastic pastels to add that little bit of sparkle to your work. Like I say, I will be adding it on, but I honestly don't think you're going to see it as much as you will do in different kind of light. Also, I will warn you, I'll probably get it everywhere. I tend to get messy because I like to touch and feel my materials. So I will probably get it all over everywhere. So let's get on with the project. So a bauble. I decided on a single bauble and I've put it into a square format. It just adds a little bit of dimension to it. I'm going to start with 3 fairly new SAA pastels. These are reds. They were introduced earlier in the year actually, I think. And they're great. They're perfect colours for this kind of work. And I'm going to start with an orange. So the original image I'm going to use, but use it as a guide. I'm going to add my own features. And it's not going to be completely the same, but it's going to be similar. And I did find when I was attempting this previously, I do keep tending to fuss about with it and keep working back and keep going back into it. But it's not a problem with this paper because it allows you to. You can work and then you can rework and then you can go, no, I didn't like that bit. You can go over. Pastels are really forgiving for that, and especially on this paper. So often, because these are long sticks, I will break them in order to be able to use it on its side and build up colour a lot more quickly. I'm going to be careful just to make sure I get the shape and make sure it's round, because that's what was bothering me when I did it before. If it's not quite round, it just looks odd. So putting down colour. I'm not overly thinking it at the moment. This is giving me an idea of where I want to go. And then I've got branches here. You may work a different way. You may feel you need to, do things a little bit more structured than I do. I just like to see what happens a lot of the time. I'm using the image I have as a guide. It's a guide. I want to achieve something similar, but I don't have to be overwhelmed with getting everything completely accurate. So even here you can see how it's building up. And now it's less scary. It's not just an empty page. It's not finished by any means, but it's less scary. So what I'm going to do is, this may not be the way you work, but it's the way I like to work on things. I like to jump around. So I'm just thinking about where I can put colour on, what colour's needed where. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the background, and in the picture it's a nice purple blue, and I really like that. So that colour, the dark blue, the French ultramarine colour, and this is where I'm going to do some softening, a little bit of the light. So again, it just looks really quite scruffy, but you watch while I don't want to put the darker colour, to put it up here. So what I'm going to do, like I say, I get very messy because I like to get my fingers onto the paper. You can use something like a tortillon or a stump to do it, but I just like to feel it. I like the way it works using my fingers. And there you can see how it's starting to blend and soften and give much more blurry background. Like I say, the pastel won't really go over onto the paper if there's no pastel there, so I'm just going to have to keep going back in and adding the colour in order to make sure I can blend it. And I know I can take layers, so if there's areas I want to soften and keep going back into, darken and lighten, pastel is so forgiving for this. Okay, blue. So all I'm doing actually is adding pigment to the page. This colour, the blue, is French ultramarine. Now, French ultramarine is a colour you hear about in watercolour, oils, pencils. It's a colour that is universally used, and the same pigment is used in all of those types of medium. So the same pigment used in a pastel is used in a pencil, is used in the paint. It's just the difference is the binder. So this will be, I think these are clay binders. I asked the supplier, these are made up of clay, which gives them, they're on the harder range of soft pastels, but as you can see here, they really put down colour really nicely, especially on pastel mat. And I'm not worrying that I'm going over the green I put up there. That was more of a guide for me. Put some more on here. I've not yet put my darker colours on because I will do that towards the end. So it's all fairly mid-tone at the moment. I'm just making sure it is. I'm keeping the shape of the bauble, because for me, everything else can be a little bit more loose, can be a little bit, see what happens, but the shape of the bauble, I think in this exercise is going to be quite important, because if it's really off, really wrong, it's going to take the whole of the, I think pastel painting, if I'm covering the whole surface, I think it's called a painting. And on this I'm covering and not keeping any of the colour of the paper showing through. So I think it's called a painting then. Or a pastel drawing if you still keep some of the paper. I think it's here or there. So I don't mind what it's called. I'm going to call it a pastel painting on this occasion. So in with the fingers. If I was really careful and really clever, what I would do, and a number of artists do, is they keep one finger for one colour, but I forget. So I've just used all my fingers to create the blue. And like I say, this is still only a first layer. I will add more layers. I found I work a lot more detailed, a lot more thought when I'm doing pastel. Okay, so I've used all my fingers, so I just need a bit of a clean, because I'm going to move this yellow. If I'd used the finger which still had the blue on, it would have possibly contaminated it a little bit. You can tell when you've reached a saturation with the pastel and it won't blend anymore. Just add more pigment. But I don't know if you can see how little dust I'm creating. Really not creating very much at all. I want to add a bit of more light up here. So like I say, breaking it down into half so I can use the edge. Gives me a much more softer line. Okay. I think I'm going to go back into the bauble. What I did notice when I am starting to create the reflections are usually quite clean. They're not fuzzy. Depends on the surface of the object you're looking at. But with this, it's a solid, round, shiny bauble. So it's going to have clean, sharp reflections. And again, I was able to soften and add colour and just work on it, keep working on it until I was happy. So I love this. What colour is this? This is the rose red, and that's really on top of the orange, or working with the orange. It's making a lovely colour. And again, if you move your finger in the direction of the bauble, so making it round, you actually make the pastel move in that way and gives it a much more realistic form. I have to step back. I know I'm losing it here, but I can go back. I'm not going to fiddle with that at the moment because it might correct itself in a later date. What I don't want to do is cover all of the bauble with this red because I want to still see some of the orange coming through. But I'm just adding another colour. Not looking at darks and lights at the moment. And I'm not slavishly following what is on the image in front of me. I'm using a bit of my knowledge, a bit of my experience, and a bit of, well, let's see what happens. If it comes out really perfectly and I'm really happy with it, that's always a bonus. But nothing that you do is ever bad or worthless because you learn. You learn what to do, what not to do, what you were trying to achieve, what you weren't trying to achieve. So I'm going to maybe go back with the lighter colours. So just test which colours I've got because they do look different on the page. I'm not worrying about detail yet because I can deal with that later. Don't know if that's going to show through, so maybe use that later. Okay, so I'm going to go in with deep rose red. Where's that other red I had? I had it, Gary.
Did you break it in half? Is it that one?
No, that was the orange one, so it's got to be one of these. One of these is a darker red, this one I think. Yeah, that's it.
Is that naughty elf on the shelf stealing all?
I can't believe I can't find the silver. I thought I had everything. It would turn up. No, the gold. So just add in another red. This is the rose red. Right. So on this side it's quite dark and I'm going to be using deep blue. I'm going to be using purple. Deep green. See, my purple's gone as well. And it's got to be here.
Is that not on the top? Right at the top.
No, if I haven't got the purple, I will just use the blue. It's fine. I can deal with that. I used purple last time. It doesn't mean the blue is not going to give a very similar effect. I do think someone has. I thought I had everything with me. Never mind. We will deal. So I'm starting to add some shadow on. And like I say, I normally like to go with my fingers. But I did find when you're adding shadows and you want a little bit more control, I need a finer point just to blend. Let's move some of this dark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think about some sharp lines. And so it goes there. Oh, I've added another branch. Never mind. I don't know where that's come from. But like I say, nobody actually knows the original image you're working from. And other people may put the lights on first. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along a lot of the time. I missed that yellow. I remember to put it on last time. So I'm looking at the shape of it because I like that. But you can see how I covered the dark area there. So this is how great pastel actually is. It's probably a good first medium to use because you get your colour down quickly and you're able to achieve something quite quickly. Blue, put some dark shapes. I'm looking at shape. I'm not completely looking at what I'm seeing. What I'm doing is looking at shapes. With a soft pastel, it's quite difficult to get this fine edge, so I will finish it off with pastel pencil. So here, again, using that finer. This is a stump. Tortillon is usually only has one end and it's not wound as tight. It's preference. There's no which one is the best. It's literally just which ones you prefer or like to use. So still looks a little bit dull. Doesn't really give me any sparkle yet. I'm picking up some of the pastel that's already on. See, what I would normally do is I'll just have them scattered around on the board all over the place, and then I'll know where everything is. But Gary likes to be able to see the painting for some odd reason.
It's going to be tidy, that's what it is.
I tend to just scatter. It helps my scattery brain. But if you want to be able to actually see what I'm doing, I'm going to have to try and be a little bit more controlled. So soften that off. I haven't yet put the lights on. I've not put the green on. Just working up. So this, I know it looks odd here, but to be honest, that's going to be covered with the branches. Not that one. Let's try the orange one. There we go. You can see the light. It's just giving a little bit of... Okay, I'm fiddling too much. So what I want to do now is I'm going to just put the branches on really quickly. Then I think we'd take a short break and then we'll come back and I can start to put detail on, because I do find with pastel you keep working on it, which is great, because I don't think you can go wrong as such, because you can take it back. You can use an eraser to take it back on this paper, or you can put another layer on. So I'm just going to see what happens. This is my first layer of green. I know it's not going to look like the green it's going to end up like, but I just need a suggestion of where I'm going. Thank you, sorry. I was leaning. Like I say, I've added another branch here, but I'm going with it. Not overly concerned with that. And this has got, it's pointing forward, which is nice. Get some areas like that. What it does is it's just filling up the page. I like this bit here. If you look at certain trees, you just have to look at the direction their leaves are going, and then it will make it look much more realistic. So, fine. These have got catching the light, so I need to remember not to make those too dark. So even then, you can see how it's starting to build up. And like I said, these are catching the light, so I'm just going to get those to catch the light. Maybe a bit behind here. Okay, so while I have another look at where I want to go next, let's take a short break and then we'll come back, and then you'll see how each layer just starts to finish off the painting or drawing. So join me in a minute.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage, and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. Discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing about being a member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I can shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
And we're back.
Hello and welcome back. During that short break, I actually did manage to find the gold, the silver and the copper I was trying to talk to you about at the beginning. And they were in the basket, just hiding. So the silver, the gold and the copper. These are just exciting colours in this pastel range because they've got a shimmer. And I think that's just something extra because I do see that a pastel can be quite matte, and just being able to add that little bit of sparkle without creating a mixed media, because there's plenty of things you can add, but just continuing and keeping it as a pastel drawing painting. I think these colours are actually really exciting. Like I say, I'll probably use them at the end just to give a little bit of definition. So now I'm going to start to focus and just bring it all together. So I've got, this is a dark green, and I'm just now starting to think about the shape of these branches. I've got one that comes forward here, so let's look at the direction. Still keeping some of that lovely light green underneath. I do see people, they put a colour on and then they what's the word I'm looking for?
Obliterate?
Yeah, obliterate. They cover it with another colour. So, did you need that colour in the first place? This is why I do those swatches, in order just to limit the colour I'm using, because you'll find you don't always need. I think that's starting to come together nicely now. And all it is, I've just used one pastel, one colour on top of another, and it's just now starting to bring it together. And bringing some areas together makes it all come together. Again, I quite like these ones that are pointing forward. It's just giving you a different direction. It's making it much more directional, because it's a spherical object. It's not very exciting. It's what you do to make it more exciting. Okay, so the dark. I'm using the original picture as reference, but I'm not being slavish to it. I don't want to lose some of the detail. Okay, that was great. I'm going to put some white on. I'm going to start to put some light on. The reason being is I got a little lost in this area, so I'm going to work on other areas. So instead of using that nice clean stroke, just using the tip and rolling it on, because it gives a different texture. it's just perfect for this little bit of snow that they've got on the end. So again, I'm adding texture, because sometimes I find a pastel painting can be a little flat. If that's what you're looking for, perfect. But for me, I like a little bit of variation in the texture. So some areas will be nice and soft and finished, while other areas will be a lot looser, you know, maybe not quite so finished. I think that's come up nicely. Let's see. So only some of these are picking up. So the bottom hasn't picked up quite as much of, I think it's an artificial tree, artificial snow, but the top ones are going to be much heavier. So even thinking about things like that, you know, things underneath won't have grabbed snow, things on top will have. So just thinking about that when you're doing it just starts to make it feel and look a little bit more realistic. Go back into that, not sure that's worked completely. But like I keep saying, these pastels, I can go back. I can keep going back in. This actually isn't white, this is ivory. It's a lot less harsh than white at the moment. White I'm only going to put on at the end. The ivory is giving a really nice light to it, or it's actually snow, so, but it's not going to be really stark like the white is. And I'll show you when I do put the white on why I used ivory.
You definitely got a white.
Yes, I've got a white.
You've not lost it.
The two differences there. You may not see it in the light, but this is a little bit more creamy.
Yeah, we can see that.
This is going to be quite harsh, which I will use sparingly. I know snow's white, but it's got blues in it. It's got lots. It's ice crystals, so it's going to pick up some of the colours around it. Not controlled, but effective. So like I say, I found pastels is very different to what I normally do. Normally, whack it on, see what the material does, and, you know, go from there. But with pastels, I'm starting to think a little bit more controlled. But they're also very easy to use because they just add that colour so quickly. And I think if you can see, just by adding this ivory, not white, how that, and again think about the leaves underneath, it's going to be the ones on the top that have caught. So again, not covering the colours underneath. So now I've done that, I feel much more confident now to be able to pick up the colours either in the background, or that's the blue, or into the bauble. So I'm going to just put some darker into the background and again soften this, just because this will make all the items in the foreground push forward, which I don't know if I was doing. Again, let's darken up here. I don't want to lose some of the colours underneath, so I've got to be careful because I know this dark is quite strong. But it does need it. The darker your background, as in all painting, then the lighter your lights are going to be. So sometimes it's useful to take some artistic decisions and darken areas which may not be as dark on a photograph. But we're not creating a photograph, we're creating a painting, drawing. step back. That's it. So I think what I'm going to do now is go and use my pastel pencils and just start to create a little bit cleaner areas. So these are the Derwent pastel pencils, which I can get to a really nice point with the Derwent pastel pencil sharpener. It just allows, I don't know, it just allows if you use it very slowly and gently, you can get some lovely points on pastel pencils, which a lot of people find quite difficult to do. So just filling in some areas with another colour, this dark red, and just making sure it's nice and round. And I can see by just sharpening that, it's just sharpening all over. Okay, right. So now I'm going to work on this. Oh, need to sharpen my pencil. So like I say, this, it's awkward in the wrong place on this table, but pastel pencil, if you need to rotate the handle slowly with pastel pencils because they're still delicate. It's not changed that they're a delicate core. And then I often just double check because if you keep, see, pastel pencil, soft pastel pencil, and sharpen to a really nice point. I could do a much finer point, but I don't need it at the moment. Just going to darken here. I'm not put my darkest darks on yet. That will come. I'm just now starting to bring back. This is shiny, so I need to think about how it's going to look. And like I said, with shiny objects, the reflections are often very solid and decisive. They're not fuzzy. So I'm keeping nice clean lines instead of just jumping around. And I don't know if you can see, but I can see how that is starting to pull together. And I've lost some shape here, but I can bring it back. So back in with the yellow ochre. Start to. Now I'm just re-looking at the shape. I'm not again being overly slavish to the image. No one sees what I'm actually looking at. See what colours. Okay. Need to be a little bit braver because I will keep working on it. I'll just keep fiddling. So I'm going to start putting my darks in now, and then finally create the lights, and I think it'll be pretty much finished. I'm just leaving my darks and lights till last because you get overwhelmed with detail then, and it's not what I was looking for at the beginning. Detail can come right at the end. So I'm just looking at where the darkness is hitting. It's quite dark here. This comes round. It's definitely dark up under here. Can I make some more areas in here darker? And I'm going to use a white. Nope, need some dark there. So I'm missing the darkness under here. And that's made a difference by just adding, I think it's black. I was trying to avoid black. I sometimes find it a bit harsh, but missing the string there as well. Oops. The string goes behind there and comes in front of. Easily fixed. So now, let me just sharpen this very small pencil. White pastel pencil is a colour you'll use quite often. Which is why it's the shortest of the lot. Now I'm just going to add some highlights. And I'm looking this time, need some purple. You can see in the original it's got some lovely purple because it picks up, what I've got to remember is it picks up the colour of the background. So, just making sure that I've got some of the background colours in the bauble. So I'm always saying just use background colours in the subject as well, just to tie it all together, and I've actually forgotten that, especially in something that's shiny, because it will pick it up. So now just adding some lights. And just the yellow is obviously the colour that was predominant in this light range here. Coming round, bringing back, and I'm not doing a solid line, just catching. And you'll see here that actually the light doesn't go all the way around, it just catches in intermittent areas. So try not to do solid lines. A lot of things are about not bringing making everything so solid. And like I say, it's not exactly the same. I need some little bit of sparkle here and here. What I will do is I'm probably going to finish well before I would normally, because I'll keep looking, keep adding little bits. But I think you've got the idea. You can see it looks shiny, but I'm also going to add, now I've found them, I'm going to use them all, Gary, just because I've found them. Well, I did, yeah. Yes. So now I've found all these, I'm actually going to use them all. So I'm going to use the silver in the bit in the branches. I don't think you're going to see it. Is my issue. I don't think you're going to see the sparkle. You can see the sparkle of the pastel, but it doesn't translate as well under the lights. So I'm just adding a little bit of sparkle onto these branches. Like I say, I don't think you're going to see it. Maybe a bit in here. Keeping my shadows and lights solid, a nice clean shape. But honestly, I don't think you're going to see it. Copper, I'll put that on. Let's see what happens. Like I say, no one's seen the original. Might be losing the colour by getting overexcited with copper, but I'll put some gold in here. But to be honest, you're not going to see it. Okay, step back. I can see areas I'd like to keep improving on, a little bit more lights and darks, but on the whole, that's looking okay. I don't think I've got overly messy, but it looks lovely when you take this framing tape. This is framing tape, not masking tape. It's a bit stronger than masking tape, but I like the way it sits. And if I'm careful, especially on this paper, I'm not running the risk of actually tearing it, to be honest. But if you're using it on a paper-like surface, like watercolour, just be careful. And you'll see how I'm taking it away at an angle. That helps prevent any tearing of the paper, and it also tears away if it does tear. So standing back, yeah, there's areas I'd like to modify, a bit more sparkle, maybe add detail, but I think it worked. This paper is fantastic for being able to work on top of, keep going, and look how clean these lovely colours are. So I hope you enjoyed that, and join me next week for some more live demonstrations.